Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Red Devils. We are live with your latest Manchester United news and updates, and we're back in action tomorrow night. So Ruben Amorim is expected to address the media this afternoon. We will have a report back on the press conference after it happens. That is scheduled to be at 1 o'clock. Yeah, set your reminders. You can obviously watch it live on MUTV, but if you can't, we will obviously have an update on it, and we'll let you know and what he has to say. Bit of an injury update, for example. There was a little bit of worry that Man Utd, for example, might have gotten a ban. However, nothing's really materialized from that, so it looks like he should be good to go. And a very important match for United, because there's no point going and beating Arsenal in the FA Cup, for example, if we then follow it up with another loss in the Premier League and the likes. But if you're going to get a draw against Liverpool, we beat Arsenal, we beat Southampton, we're starting to then sort of go on a bit of a run. And we've been in so dire need of a run throughout the season. So it is a very important game. And it's a very winnable game. I think that's the main thing, and it's these winnable games that we've often not won, to call a spade. And this is where sort of Ruben Amorim really needs to prove that he is capable of sort of getting us to sort of play with a bit more consistency and the likes of that. So he also gave a bit of an interesting interview talking about the fact that his dream is to win the Premier League, and very, very open about the fact that is the dream. And he's also definitely endeared himself to Roy Keane, because he was asked, who's one Premier League legend you wish you could have played alongside? He said, Eric Cantona would have been fun, but I was a midfielder, so I would have loved to play with Roy Keane. He does all the job, and I can focus on playing with the ball, but I think it would be fun. And the big thing, for example, is he was asked, what is your dream as the Manchester United manager? And Ruben Amorim said as follows. He said, it's simple. It's to win the Premier League. More than anything, I just want to help this club. I felt a great connection with everybody here. It's a hard thing to do, to be confident in this moment, but we are confident in my dream, which is to win the Premier League in our stadium with our fans. After so much time with a lot of problems, winning again, I think, is the best goal we can achieve. Very much on board with that, Ruben. I think all United fans are very much gonna back you up there. We've got to win the league in the next sort of 5 years, really, because we're starting to lose our aura, isn't it? I mean, I don't think too many teams, for example, now are scared of playing against United, but as a club, we were always a club that you would win things and been so successful. And if you're a youngster growing up now, you don't look at United as this big force in the world, maybe from a sport base, but not from a success base. Whereas when I grew up, we just won consistently all the time. That was it. When in doubt, if we didn't win the league, it was an absolute travesty. And by the next season, we were winning the league again, for example, and we were going close in the Champions League. So, for somebody who's grown up watching United be so successful, it's so frustrating to see us being, just drop off. And hopefully now we are kind of moving into a bit of an era where we can try and find that success. You want to become more like a Real Madrid, an institution that is just always successful. And they really are as a club. They were winning a Champions League in the late 1900s, in the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s. They were successful. They're successful now. They're successful 10 years ago. Successful 20 years ago. They're a side that are always consistently successful, and that's something United needs to become. United have always been a major player in the game, but that sort of 30-year period, 90 to sort of 2015, 2016, even to a certain degree, when we still won a couple of Europas, we were just a different level and winning so many Premier Leagues and so many trophies that we became one of the biggest clubs in the world. Unfortunately, it's been a long time since we've been able to call ourselves that from a performance point of view, from a success point of view. But in terms of coming up on the show, we're going to talk a little bit about the transfer windows. So Jim Ratcliffe is apparently ready to sanction 3 potential moves. We've got an update on Marcus Rashford, who is set to hold crunch talks with United today, or his brother slash agent is supposed to be having those talks today. We'll give you a bit of an update as well on United having already missed a potential January target, with Fabrizio Romano giving a here you go. And we've also got a bit of an update on United's first official signing, which is not really announced yet, but we've got pictures and the whole works. And so, yeah, we're waiting just for probably the last few bits of paperwork to be done before we can then announce it. So let's get into it, shall we? Before we do that, please just smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. So United have officially signed well, not officially, but United have basically all but signed our first signing of the window. Diego Leon was pictured at Old Trafford. He was said to be there over the weekend, signing his contract and confirming that move from Paraguay. It's going to be I think it's initial £3.3 million fee, which will rise up to £7 million. He will, however, only be joining in the summer. So, not going to be really boosting the squad now, but very much a player for the future. And nice to see that we're sort of still looking to try to bring in youngsters, talented youngsters. And I quite like the fact that we're willing to go and pay a bit of a fee for them, if they really are going to be that good. Because if you're going to bring in a Diego Leon and he becomes a 30, 40, 50 million pound player, that's more or less pure profit, really. Even if he goes up to 7 million, you sign it, you tell him for 60 million pounds down the line, for example, you've made 53 million pounds in profit. And even if you just produce the player where he is worth 50, 60 million pounds, you then save that basically as a club, in terms of having to go and try and sign a player like that. So really, really cool to see that we've actually got something done, but we need to see getting more of that. Now, on the not so pleasant side of things is this news over here. So United looks like officially missed a move for Randall Colomani. He is set to join Juventus on a 6-month loan. There is no buy option, so in theory we could go after him in the summer if we wanted. And is apparently going to be flying to Turin to have his medical test this week. So very frustrating from a United point of view, because not so much that we missed it, but the fact that he has gone somewhere, So there was an opportunity to do a deal, and United were apparently very keen on him. And the fact that, I'm not sure we officially ever sort of put in the bid or what the bid was, but if we did and he turned us down, it's another big frustrating situation where another player said no to us, for example. And until we start being able to get deals like this over the line, because this is a smart deal, there's no transfer fee, for example. It's just a loan. There's no option to buy. It's a bit of a low risk, high reward potential. If he does really well, great. If he doesn't do very well, we're no worse off than we were before he arrived. So frustrating not to get deals like this done, because I think that loans represent our best opportunity of really bringing in players in this window. I don't think we're going to be, making lots of big signings and making permanent acquisitions. But in terms of permanent departures, so Ratcliffe is reportedly ready to lose these 3 players in January, even if they can get the money for them. So, and those players are on screen over there. So, yeah, so Marcus Rashford, we know that he is a once away and wants to leave the club, and is set to hold, crunch talks today. Apparently his brother, who's been in Milan, speaking to AC Milan, is going to be speaking to United about the current situation, for example, what they want from their camp, what maybe Juventus said and the likes, and so there'll be an update coming from them. But it's been a bit of a problematic update, I think, with AC Milan, given the fact that they were trying to offload a couple players, try and make space for Marcus Rashford. They've been unable to do that, and as a result, he remains very available. And with not too many suitors at the moment, West Ham apparently could potentially be a destination, which I don't think would be a bad destination, but I'd really like to see him leave England. Leave the UK, get away, and go and find yourself in a space where, you can start again from afresh and not have to worry about, players and the media and the likes of that all sort of piling in on you, and rather just get back to playing your best football. Garnacho is an interesting one. So apparently there are talks that have opened surrounding Alejandro Garnacho. United, initially there was talks about the fee being as low as £46 million. Now there's a fee about £70 million being sort of touted, and it's an interesting one. £70 million for Garnacho will be pure profit. So in terms of balancing the books, it would make a really, really big difference, and would be quite a good business decision. But I just look at him, and I look at the passion, for example. I look at the potential there. The goals he's already scored, the moments he's had, and I would really be upset if he were to leave. I think that he's someone who should be the future of United, and I don't think the current system really suits him, and I think he's struggled in that. But I really do look at him and think that he should be somebody who's at the centerpiece of United project. As should, Kobe Mainoo. I mean, a year ago, you'd be looking at those two and saying, right, we're going to build our team around these two. Our next decade is going to be these two at the center. Kobe Mainoo in the midfield, Garnacho scoring goals. However, things might not work out like that, because there's lots of talks Kobe Mainoo could also be ready to be sold, given the fact that he apparently was he wants quite a big contract, and so Jim Ratcliffe very open, I think, about selling players who, if they don't fit in the project and if they're not going to cooperate, then nobody is expendable, or everyone is expendable rather. And again, he's a player who I really think we should be making sure that he's part of it. But if he's going to become a problem, for example, and again, if this helps balance books, if it helps us get us into a better situation where we can then potentially go and sign players, then maybe it is actually a good thing. So difficult, because I think I look at those three players and personally it's so, they are what United represents at the moment. I think of United and you think of your big players, and those are the three big ones, but that is also why they are potentially so sellable, because they offer us the opportunity to make some money back, and they offer us opportunities to then go back into the market to sign other players, new players who maybe fit the system a lot better than what these players currently do. And I think that, an example, is very, very important. So yeah, it'd be tough for me to look at anything going, but again, you got to look at a long-term project, and sometimes making those big calls is what we need. So Abraham's saying at least Garnacho won't be in the Prem. I feel like that would be a good thing. Well, I think similarly, I feel the same way kind of about Marcus Rashford. I think that getting away from the Premier League might be what's best for him. I think there's a toxicity in the Premier League and playing in the Premier League. And I think, we've all seen sometimes, for example, in Spain, the way that the media attacked Gareth Bale and didn't appreciate him. I think that's become quite a common theme in the Premier League. Players not being appreciated, players really having to, consistently and continuously always prove their worth, despite, what their age is, what their experience is. And I think, when we saw Garnacho not celebrating that goal, a month ago, and a young player of his age feeling that he's under so much pressure and the fans are turned against him is horrible. And United was always a team where we didn't do that. It was always a club where we would back our youngsters, we'd give them the room to fail. We would not come down hard on them. We'd really try and make sure they're going to succeed and give them all the backing. And there was a loyalty there. And I think probably also, in terms of the globalization of football, I think that's made a big difference. Your fans are far more fickle, because I think there's less sort of a culture of you choose one football side, you stand by it, you go through thick and thin and the likes of that. I think the modern day fan is far more susceptible to flipping between teams or supporting more than one team, for example. Maybe supporting the league necessarily, not just one team. You ask anybody in the world who they support, and they'll always tell you a team. But there's always so many levels to the game, isn't there? I think the more the Premier League grows, the more there's this globalization of football. I think there's less of a loyalty. And I think also within the stadiums itself, far more tourists are going. It's far less the sort of the community fans, who I think are pretty diehard and loyal. So you've got these fans, maybe sort of fair weather fans, who come in and, maybe those are the fans that are sort of turning on these players quite quickly, or not giving them the support that maybe previous players got. So it's a tricky situation to be in. But at the moment, we're sort of weighing up short-term versus long-term. Now, short-term, these three players leave. It's big holes in the squad. There's no doubt about it. At the end of the day, yes, we could, we beat Arsenal, and Rashford didn't play, and Kobe Manu, I don't think he's had his best month, but I think he's getting a lot better. But Garnacho added an assist, and even if we lose Rashford at the moment, maybe we're coping without him. But at the end of the day, if Rashford's playing well, he adds a lot to the squad. So it's just such a strange situation to be in, where we're having to make these big calls that we previously would never have considered doing. I mean, there's many times we could have sold Rashford in the last 5-6 years and made very big money on him. We decided not to do that. And now, unfortunately, we're probably going to have to cash in at a time where he's not going to be able to bring in, the type of transfer fee we want from him. And that's frustrating, because maybe we needed to make these bigger decisions previously. Maybe, when things weren't going well, we needed to look at selling Rashford for £100 million and investing that well. The only thing I would say is I think if we had sold him back in the day, with the track record we have, we probably wouldn't have bought particularly well, and we probably wouldn't have been much better off, in all honesty, because we've got a long history of signing really poor players, and that was during the time of Ed Woodward and the likes. But at the moment, we don't actually know what Ineos is going to be like when it comes to acquisitions. We brought in Ugarte, very good signing. Mazraoui, very good signing. De Ligt, I think, it's proven to be a very good signing. Finally had a really good game over the weekend, and I think starting to look like the De Ligt of old. Xerxes, well, I suppose he didn't win us the game, but he hasn't been a brilliant signing. So I think now in this January and now in the summer transfer window, we'll start to get more of an idea of the kind of signings Ineos are looking for, what they're willing to sanction, what they're not willing to sanction in terms of transfer fees, in terms of sales, wages as well. I think offloading Casemiro, we haven't heard much about that. But offloading him frees us up like 30 million plus in wages. Losing Rashford frees us probably also a similar amount in wages. And, if you're then bringing in players who are earning significantly less, then all of a sudden we're freeing up a lot of wages, freeing up a lot of money. United's under a lot of criticism at the moment. We've upped our ticket prices, but one of the football experts, I think it was in the overlap in that whole sort of fan forum kind of vibe, was talking about the fact that we bring in £100 million, or for example, £100 million, if we then bring in £20 million more, because of the way we operate, that can be used for transfers. Now that's a Mazraoui. So when you put it as simple as that, for example, then you're thinking, well, maybe it's worth it. But at the same time, you don't want to be sitting there ripping your fans, whilst the big wigs get even richer. Abraham's saying, Garnacho has been playing okay so far, but struggled a lot in the beginning. I didn't see Garnacho as a pass-first player, but it should be interesting. Well, this is the thing, I think that I wouldn't mind a loan for him, but I personally would really like to see him stay because I think he can adapt. I think, we are far too judgmental. And I think, the main thing you're saying there is he is getting better. I think he did struggle at the beginning of the season, but I think we forget how young he is. He should never be playing the amount he was in the beginning of the season. He should never be relied on as a 20-year-old to be, fulfilling the role that we really need him to do. So I personally think that if he were to stay, in a year's time, we'd be looking at a really, really good player who I think would settle into the team, would settle into a system, and I think would understand how to work. I think the best players have always been able to adapt to that. The best players would always be able to come into a team, a new system, and find a role. He's gone up through a United system, playing out on the wing, playing on the wing of internationals. That's all he's ever known. Now he's had to change, and initially he struggled, but you look at what he did with that assist, and that's the Garnacho we know. That's the Garnacho we want to see, and there's space for that Garnacho. Whether it's as a wing back or in that number 10, for example, there's skills that he can learn and acquire where I still believe he can be really successful. It's just whether we're going to willing to sort of put that work in, whether he's willing to put that work in, or whether we'd rather cash in and kind of offload and then try and find someone who's ready made to go into the system itself. So big decisions to make, for United. And I'm not really sure what the right answers are. I don't really have the right answers. There's no guarantee, for example, that if you sell Marcus Rashford, we're going to go and find a player who's going to suddenly score 30, 40 goals. There's no guarantee it's going to happen. We could sell Rashford, go and sign somebody else who could produce even worse numbers. So it's a tricky situation, and that's the thing, isn't it? As we've seen so many before, there's no guaranteed signings. There's no safe signings in terms of we know exactly what they're going to give us. Maybe, you go buy Harry Kane, he's going to score you goals, but that's huge money. Even Mbappe's taken a while to adapt to Real Madrid. Erling Haaland went through that dip in form in the city. So even those surefire players, what you're going to get out of, they will go through blips, and there's no guarantee even with them. So a big January window ahead, and we'll get more of an update in terms of our injuries and stuff like that as we start to look towards Southampton's, our first home game of the season. So this is also the really big thing, is the fact that we went to Anfield and got a point. We went to Emirates and got through. So you cannot now go from that, to losing at home. There's no Diego Dalot. That's the only one who I think is completely ruled out from the weekend. No Shaw, Lindelof, Mason Mount expected to be available. So I don't think we're going to see too much of a change. But Dalot's the only one with that suspension who is definitely out. We'll wait and find out exactly what Ruben Amorim has to say later in terms of his available, his press comments and the availability and the likes of that. I think it's this game. I feel like I've been a stuck record for a while now because we keep saying the same thing. But I want to try and put out the table and look at our fixtures as well, and talk about where we are and just why this period is so important. And the December period was so important, but we completely buckled. But if we look at where we are in the league and where our matches are coming, and hopefully this should size nicely. Yeah, there we go. That's fine. In fact, I'll do this. I'll open up that. I think it actually makes it a bit bigger. So we'll just adjust it. There we go. Just going to adjust it slightly, but that should fit quite nicely. Apologies, it's actually been a while since I've used the screen. There we go. Right, so let's go. The main thing I want to start by looking at the table. In fact, let's look at our fixtures, and then we look at the table. So let's look at these fixtures over here. So we have got Southampton tomorrow at 8 o'clock. I don't know why I'm saying 10, but it's 8 o'clock. We then got Brighton at on the weekend. We've got Rangers next week, Thursday, Fulham. I'm looking at these 5 games actually, before we then go back to the Europa. I'm looking at those 5 games for the rest of the month, and I'm thinking they're all winnable. They're all winnable, and we really need to be winning them. And what that'll do in terms of those 3 league games, again, I just have to move this slightly, pain in the arse, is what it does for us. So at the moment, we're still languishing down in 14th. We're going to get 12 points, for example, puts 35 points. Now, that would still have us probably quite far back from your Chelseas and your Cities and your Newcastles. But if they start to drop points, I mean, Newcastle at the moment, this run is pretty impressive. I'll be very, very impressed if they continue that run over there. But City are very inconsistent at the moment. Chelsea are actually really struggling at the moment. They were doing brilliantly, and they kind of dropped off the radar a little bit. So if we go on a run and we can start getting results, we just need to put ourselves into the mix. I think that's the main thing. Get yourself into the mix for that top 4. Just make it accessible. You make it possible. At the moment, it's like mission impossible because you're sitting, I think it's 14 points off of top 4. Get yourself into single digits. Get yourself 8 points behind, 7 points behind. Because then you're going to play against these sides who are in the top 4, and that's all of a sudden can be a 6-point swing. You know, in terms of if Chelsea are on 37, for example, Chelsea are 37, they are 14 points ahead of us, and we beat them. You know, we go, and then all of a sudden we catch up, and this is a thing that can happen with the end of the season, is that, you know, pressure plays interesting games, and then so we're just going to sort of finish up there. And inclusion, Abraham saying you reckon it's 3-0 against Southampton. We might even actually try to watch along tomorrow night. It's not something I was really thinking of doing, but yeah, I've got no plans to watch it with anybody, so maybe I'll just jump on. So Abraham, hope to see you there maybe, and if anybody else is around you, come and jump on what could be the first watch along. It'll be very small, very chilled, and hopefully we can get a good result. But yeah, so we'll see you guys later for the Movement and Maroon update, and then we'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully, for maybe a first watch along. We'll wait and see. But if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to it. We are growing slowly but surely. And if you have any recommendations or